everyone. Welcome to today's episode of The Radium Girls. In today's episode, we'll be traveling overseas to bring you a story about mystery, conspiracy, and our thoughts on what we think happened. So let's slide right in. In January of 1959, 9 young Soviet hikers died under mysterious circumstances while trekking through the Ural Mountains. It's now known as the Dyatlov Pass incident. A 23-year-old hiker named Igor Dyatlov led a journey to reach the peak of Otertin, a mountain in the northern Urals of Soviet Russia. The young man brought a team of 8 experienced hikers, many from the Ural Polytechnical Institute, along with him for the adventure. Before he left, Dyatlov had told his sports club that he and his team would send them a telegram as soon as they returned.
But that telegram was never sent, and none of the hikers of the so-called Dyatlov Pass incident were ever seen alive again. When their bodies were found in the coming weeks, their strange and gruesome injuries left investigators baffled and repulsed. Some were missing eyes, another was missing her tongue, and many were struck by a force comparable to that of a speeding car, but no one could make sense of it. So crazy stuff. What are y'all doing in the mountains? The Soviet government closed the case quickly and offered only thin explanations, saying that the hikers died due to hypothermia because they were inexperienced and that maybe something like an avalanche was at fault. But they were experienced. But with that explanation clearing up almost none of the lingering questions, amateur sleuths have been puzzling over the mystery of the Dyatlov Pass incident for the last 60 years. And while the Russian government did reopen the case in 2019, we still don't know exactly what happened on that snowy mountainside all those years ago.
Based on what was recovered from cameras and diaries discovered at the site of the hikers' deaths, investigators were able to piece together that on February 1st, the team began to make their way through the then unnamed pass leading to Otertin. As they pushed through the hostile climate towards the base of the mountain, they were hit with snowstorms that ripped through the narrow pass. Decreasing visibility caused the team to lose their sense of direction, and instead of moving towards Otertin, they accidentally deviated west and found themselves on the slope of a nearby mountain. To avoid losing the altitude they had gained, or perhaps simply because the team wanted to practice camping on a mountain slope before their ascent of Overton, Dyatlov called for camp to be made there. It was on this solitary mountainside that all 9 hikers of the Dyatlov Pass incident would meet their demise.
When February 20th rolled around and there was still no communication from the hikers, a search party was formed. The volunteer rescue force that trekked through Dyatlov Pass found the campsite but no hikers, so military and police investigators were sent in to determine what had happened to the missing team. When they arrived on the mountain, the investigators weren't hopeful. Though the group was made up of experienced hikers, the route they had chosen was remarkably difficult, and accidents on these tricky mountain trails were a real danger. With the hikers having been missing for so long, investigators expected to find an open and shut case of a horrific accident on treacherous ground. They were only partially correct. They found bodies, yet the state in which the bodies were found only raised more questions. Starting on February 26th, the discoveries of the bodies opened up the true mystery of the Dyatlov Pass incident that continues to this day.
When investigators arrived at the campsite, the first thing they noticed was that the tent had been cut open in a way that soon proved to be from the inside, and that it was nearly destroyed. Meanwhile, most of the team's belongings, including several pairs of shoes, had been left there at camp. They then discovered 8 or 9 sets of footprints from the team, many of them clearly made by people with either nothing, socks, or a single shoe on their feet. These tracks led to the edge of the nearby woods, almost a mile away from the camp. At the forest's edge, under a large cedar, the investigators found the remains of a small fire in the first 2 bodies. We're gonna call the first one Yuri K. I'm gonna attempt it. Yuri Krivonishchenko. Krivonishchenko. I'm so sorry.
It's Russian.
It's Russian. He's 23. And then Yuri D., who is Yuri Doroshenko. He's a lot easier to say. He's 21. So both Yuris were found. Despite temperatures of -13 to -22 degrees Fahrenheit on the night of their deaths, both men's bodies were found shoeless and wearing only underwear. They then found the next 3 bodies, those of Dyatlov, Zenaida Kolmogorova, 22, and Rustem Slobodin, who's 23. They died on their way back to the camp from the cedar tree.
While the circumstances were odd, investigators found that the causes of death were clear. All the hikers, they said, had perished from hypothermia. I don't know, that's the real cause.
Yeah.
Their bodies showed no indication of severe external damage beyond what had been inflicted by the cold. So I guess it's just those 2 bodies.
Mm.
However, it didn't explain why Yuri D was quote-unquote brown-purple in complexion, or why he had gray foam coming from his right cheek and gray liquid coming from his mouth. That doesn't explain it.
No, not at all.
No. This didn't explain why the hands of the 2 hikers under the cedar were scraped away and the branches above them were torn down, as if the 2 men had tried desperately to seek shelter from something or someone in the tree. Terrifying.
So they were trying to climb up the tree or climb up the branches.
Their hands are scraped away. That's desperation. That's crazy. Meanwhile, Rustem had head injuries consistent with someone falling and hitting their head over and over again. Zenaida Kolmogorova had a baton-shaped bruise on her side. These 2 hikers, as well as the others found by this point, were generally underdressed and wearing some of each other's clothing, only supporting the idea that they'd fled suddenly without adequate preparation into the freezing night despite being experienced hikers. It wasn't until the other 4 bodies were found 2 months later that the mystery deepened even more. Dang, 2 months later.
I already have a theory.
Uh-oh.
I'm not going to say it yet.
Okay.
The remaining hikers were discovered buried under the snow in a ravine 75 meters deeper into the woods than the cedar, known as the Dyatlov Pass Den, and their bodies told even more gruesome stories than those of the other members of the group. Nikolai Thibault Brignoles, 23, suffered significant skull damage in the moments before his death, while Ludmila Dubinina I'm so sorry. Dubinina, who was 20, and Semyon Zolotaryov, who was 38, had major chest fractures that could only have been caused by an immense force comparable to that of a car crash. In the most gruesome part of the Dyatlov Pass incident, Dubinia, I'm going to say Dubinia because it sounds better for my brain. Dubinia was missing her tongue, eyes, part of her lips, as well as facial tissue and a fragment of her skull bone. They also found the body of Alexander Koletvetov, who was 24, in the same location but without the same kind of severe wounds. Huh. The second group of bodies suggested that the hikers had died at distinctly different times because they appeared to have been making use of the clothing of the people who died before them.
So that's why the first 2 people only had undies?
Yeah, probably.
But that's so weird. Like, I don't know. Yeah, just gotta keep reading.
Yeah. Dubinya's foot was wrapped in a piece of Yuri K's wool pants, and Zolotaryov...
Semyon?
Yeah. And Semyon was found in Dubinya's faux fur coat and hat, suggesting he had taken them from her after she had died, just as she had taken clothes from Yuri K there's
That's so crazy. Like, what situation?
I mean, but the temperature is -13 to -22 degrees Fahrenheit. That's freaking cold.
Yeah.
So I get that they're like...
I mean, I get why, but This, like, what situation? That's so weird.
Still, my theory's still brewing here. It's still brewing. It's still making sense.
Ooh, that's so weird. Perhaps most mysterious of all was that the clothes of both Alexander and Dubinina showed evidence of being radioactive.
What?
What?
Okay, now my theory is kind of going out the door.
Due to evidence like this, even with more bodies found, the mystery of the Dyatlov Pass incident only grew more baffling. My brain's just like,
yeah.
What? The Soviet government closed the case quickly and gave only vague causes of death and speculated that the hikers' own incompetence may have caused their demises or that a natural disaster was the culprit. Early on, many Soviets also suspected that the hikers' deaths were the result of an ambush by the local Mansi tribesmen. A sudden attack would account for the way the hikers fled their tents, their disarray, and the damage done to the second group of bodies. But that explanation fizzled quickly. The Mansi people were largely peaceful, and the evidence in the Dyatlov Pass didn't much support violent human conflict. For one, the damage done to the hikers' bodies exceeded the blunt force trauma one human could inflict on another. There was also no evidence of any footprints on the mountain beyond those made by the hikers themselves. I wonder if they'd still be there after that many days. I guess theirs were.
Yeah.
So
That's still sus, though, because, like, if there's a snowstorm, unless there was no more snowstorms, but you would still, I could see it being maybe not as deep of a footprint. Because the snow, like, blown over it, but I don't know. Investigators then conceived a theory of a swift, violent avalanche. The sound of snow collapsing, an early warning of the deluge to come, would have frightened the hikers out of their tents in a state of undress and sent them sprinting for the tree line. An avalanche would also have been powerful enough to inflict the injuries that killed the second group of hikers. But the physical evidence of an avalanche just wasn't there, and locals familiar with the terrain later said that such a natural disaster wouldn't have made sense in the Dyatlov Pass. There was also the fact that when the investigators found the bodies, they noted no evidence that an avalanche had occurred any time recently in the region. There was no damage to the tree line, and searchers observed no debris. No avalanches had been recorded at that site before, and nor have there been any since. With official theories leaving lots unexplained, many alternative explanations for the Dyatlov Pass incident have been put forward in the 6 decades since. While many of these are highly elaborate, some are decidedly concrete and straightforward.
Some tried to explain the hikers' strange behavior and lack of clothing with an in-depth look at the effects of hypothermia. Irrational thinking and behavior is a common early sign of hypothermia, and as a victim approaches death, they may paradoxically perceive themselves to be overheating, causing them to remove their clothes.
Mm-hmm. I have heard about that.
Yeah, that sucks. But then why would the other people put on their clothes? I don't know. You don't make sense. The trauma to the second group of bodies in this version of events is caused by a stumbling plunge over the edge of a ravine. Yet hypothermia doesn't explain why the hikers left their warm tents in a panic for the frigid world outside in the first place. Yep, damn right.
And like ripping it, or not ripping it open, but cutting it open from the outside.
Yeah.
Like, why are you cutting your tent open?
Right?
Yeah, that don't make sense.
Other investigators begin to test the theory that the deaths were the result of some argument among the group that got out of hand, possibly related to the romantic encounter. There was a history of dating between several of the members that could explain some of the lack of clothes. I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But people who knew the ski group said they were largely harmonious. The Dyatlov hikers would have been no more able to inflict the damage to their compatriots than the Mansi. The force involved in some of the deaths were again greater than that which any human could inflict. Because remember they said that it looked like that dude got hit by a car or something like that?
Uh-huh.
It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. With humans effectively ruled out as the culprits behind the Dyatlov Pass incident, though there are theories that the KGB or murderous prison escapees were at fault. Some began to posit non-human assailants. Some began to claim that the hikers were killed by a mink, a kind of Russian yeti, to account for the immense force and power necessary to cause the injuries to the three of the hikers. This was my theory.
I was wondering if that was your theory.
Definitely my theory. Some sort of a yeti or a Bigfoot of the snow, a yeti. It makes sense.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
This theory is popular among those who focus on the damage to Dubinya's face. That's exactly what I was thinking. Her eyes and her lips and tongue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. While most explain her missing tissue by positing a visit from small scavengers or perhaps decay resulting from her partial submersion in a watery under-snow stream, mink advocates see a more sinister predator at work. Other sleuths point to the reports of small amounts of radiation detected on some of the bodies, leading to wild theories that the hikers had been killed by some sort of a secret radioactive weapon after stumbling into a secret government testing. Those who favor this idea stress the strange appearance of the bodies at their funerals. The corpses had slightly orange, withered cast.
It's kind of weird.
Mm-hmm. But had radiation been the cause of death, more than the modest levels would have been registered when the bodies were examined. The corpses' orange hue isn't surprising given the frigid condition in which they sat for weeks. They were partially mummified in the cold. That's what I was thinking when I read this about the orange, like giving that slightly orange hue. Well, once your body gets, your blood is, it turns blue-black.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they go to embalm you, it's going to turn that orange hue. I know stuff about that.
Weirdo.
Yeah, a little bit. But that's we'll talk about that more once we finish the story, but I definitely think that's...
The secret weapon explanation is popular because it is partially supported by the testimony of another hiking group, one camping 50 kilometers from the Dyatlov Pass team on the same night. This other group spoke of strange orange orbs floating in the sky around Kolat Sakal. Mm-hmm. A site proponents of this theory interpret as distant explosions. Other explanations include drug testing that caused violent behavior in the hikers and an unusual weather event known as infrasound, because the low-frequency sound waves create kind of an earthquake inside the body. In the end, the hikers' deaths were officially attributed to a compelling natural force and the case was closed.
But in 2019, Russian officials reopened the case for a new investigation. This time, however, officials said they would only consider 3 theories: an avalanche, a snow slab, or a hurricane.
A hurricane?
A hurricane.
In a mountain?
In the mountains.
I don't know about that area, but
Yeah.
Okay. I just never heard of a hurricane going to like a winter place. Never heard of a hurricane going in snow. How wild would that be? It'd be like snowing. You just don't get random hurricanes though. Like, days before, everybody knows. You don't just get a random hurricane. Right? What about like a tornado or something?
I mean, yeah, you're right.
But why would they even suggest that,
This was back in 1956?
Oh, wait, well, I don't know how far back, weather stuff goes.
I mean, even
weather forecast.
Even still, I think that they had some sort of a sense even back then.
Yeah, I feel like
I definitely don't think it was a hurricane. I think it could have been possible, but
then they said there was a snowstorm, and then they got lost.
Mm-hmm.
Or went a different way, deviated from the path or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think other people would recall if there was a hurricane at that time.
That's true.
Because it's such a memorable thing.
Well, this is them saying they would only consider the 3 theories, so they put that out there.
But why would you consider a hurricane?
Well, if somebody said, "Oh yeah, I remember there's a hurricane,"
I wouldn't take one person's recollection.
I mean, not one person, but
I mean, if there was like several, like, oh yeah, man, it was a bad hurricane. But, oh well, maybe it was a hurricane. I don't know.
Well, the case was once again closed with only vague conclusion that no criminal activity was afoot. Investigators said in July 2020 that the hikers died of hypothermia after an avalanche of similar force pushed them out of their tent and into the cold. Still, the mystery remains unofficially unsolved. The mountainside in question was named the Dyatlov Pass in honor of the lost expedition, and a monument to the 9 hikers was erected in the Mikhailov Cemetery at Yekaterinburg. What did it say? Yekaterinburg.
Close enough.
There lay the only people who will ever know the full truth of what happened that night in the Dyatlov Pass.
Yeah.
And that's the story of the Dyatlov Pass. So, my theory is that maybe it was some sort of an abominable snowman. Like a Yeti. Like a Bigfoot. Because you've got the 2 by the tree that were trying to get away from the Yeti, from the possible Yeti. So their hands were, sloshed off from climbing the tree. It looked like they were physically trying for the branches and stuff. And it doesn't make sense for them to go. It doesn't make sense for them to go in a tree, but think of it like them thinking it's some sort of a bear.
Yeah.
You'd want to try to climb, even though bears can climb trees, you still would want to try to get away from it as fast as possible. So the other part of that is the other people where they were found, and specifically the ones like we were saying earlier, Dubinina. What was her name?
Dubinina?
Yeah, Dubinina. Her face was, her eyes were gone, and her lips, the skin around her lips, and her lips were gone, her tongue. That sounds like some abominable snowman, some Yeti stuff that they're gonna, attack the face, or even some sort of a bear at that. And then, the one that his body would look like he was, hit by a car or something. Could have been the Yeti throwing him up against a tree. Yeah. Or a snow slab at that, if they're hard as rock,
Oh, that's so weird. Do you think the water could have done that to Dubinina? Being partially submerged?
No.
You don't think so?
Mm-mm. To her face and stuff? No. Mm-mm.
How long was she under there?
They weren't found for a month or so? A couple months?
I feel like it's possible, but I don't know if that's what happened to her. It's just weird how, there was, different groups, and then, they just were taking clothes from the last group, and what? That confuses me.
Yeah. I don't know if maybe, the first 2...
were they already out, maybe by the tree, and maybe, no, because then how did the other... Were they all... No?
My thought... What if those 2 went to, they went to the restroom in groups? What if they're like, hey, let's go to the restroom or whatever? So they stepped over to the tree, or they wanted to get some firewood. Maybe the 2 went out to get some firewood. And, that's when the Yeti attacked them. And I think the reason that there's no Yeti footprints is because they're covering their own tracks.
I mean...
My other theory to it, I kind of did, when they were talking about the government part of it, I could kind of see that just because of our future story that we'll have soon. But, maybe there is some sort of a government thing going on where, they're watching this Yeti in his environment, so they had to hide the Yeti footprints, you know. And maybe the orange orbs, if they really did see that, was the government,
I mean, it's Russia. Anything can happen. No offense.
Very true.
A lot of stuff goes down there.
That's so true.
No offense. Okay, don't go for me.
Don't go for me. I don't know. I think it could have been something like that. I don't know if I believe the avalanche story, because I don't think they'd see footprints if it was an avalanche. Because they saw the footprints leading to the tree.
Was it to the tree?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think they would have seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to make sense, but I'm I need to know, where everybody was at the time this all happened before they ran. Were they all in the tents? Were they outside of the tents?
Well, some were in the tents. We know that because they cut it open from the inside.
So some were in the tents, and then But who are the ones? I don't know. But weren't the ones by the tree like a mile? Didn't it say something about a mile? Okay, hon. These tracks led to the edge of nearby woods almost a mile away from camp.
Oh, yeah.
So, at the forest's edge, under a large cedar, the investigators found the remains of a small fire in the first. So, they had a whole fire out there. A small fire. So, what happened? They had a fire out there. Well, they were almost a mile away, or they were a mile away and came back by a cedar tree?
No, I think they were at the edge of the woods by a cedar tree. Like, they were a mile away.
So they were a mile away from the camp?
Yeah. I think they went to go get wood.
A mile away?
They were like, yeah, because maybe that's the woods.
I feel like, I don't know, the story is so confusing. Like, how? Why? But then I don't think, like, any trees were, like, torn down or anything. I feel like that would show avalanche.
Mm-hmm.
Something sketchy went down over here.
Yeah. Well, and this does say that this said that ancient folklore tells of the deaths of 9 Mansi here. And this also said 9 people died in a plane crash here in 91. And there were 9 skiers.
Well, don't go in 9s.
Yeah. If you're going to the Dyatlov Pass, don't go in a group of 9.
That one's a hard one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I believe avalanche. I definitely don't believe hurricane.
Mm-mm.
I don't think I believe the snow slab, because I feel like more stuff would be destroyed.
Mm-hmm. I could see, like, the hypothermia piece of it where they're getting disoriented, and that could explain why they switch clothings and stuff like that. But I also think that maybe they're, like, you know, they go out, maybe they went out looking for them, and they see them that they're past, and they see something really bad happen to them, so they, like, I don't know why they would take some of their stuff, clothing-wise. I don't know. This is a crazy story.
What if they, like, them two by the fire were, like, having the hypothermia thing happening to them? They're taking off their clothes. They start, like, screaming and stuff like that, and then they hear them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a mile away.
Yeah.
Damn. Sound carries.
Sound does carry, and they could have heard them from a mile away.
And they're like, oh my God, they're screaming, and then they just take off without all their gear.
Yeah. Or maybe they were already starting to go look for them, so they were, like, halfway there, and that's why they heard them.
But they wouldn't go without their gear? Like their clothes and stuff? Shoes? I don't know, man.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, like, half of them didn't have clothes on.
Or what if there was another Yeti attacking the campsite while those two were getting attacked over there?
Yeah. There's, like, so many different groups, and so much different happening.
Yeah, so much stuff's happening. And so the theory I have with the tent being cut open from the inside rather than, like, going out the front of the zipper or something like that is that what if there was a Yeti trying to get in the tent and then so they had to cut out the back to get out? That's my thought on that.
Was it cut in the back, though?
Was it cut in the back?
I don't know. We need to know these things. Yeah, what about that girl that was, like, leaning against a rock?
Yeah, that was weird.
I guess you can't really see it.
There's snow on it?
Yeah. So how are they seeing footprints? If that's, like, all covered up. Because that kind of looks avalanche-y. Maybe, like, a little one or something. But if they still seeing footprints.
Maybe somewhere, like, around where it's not as
like over here or something. Because this looks kind of smooth right here.
Maybe it's on this side.
Maybe it is an avalanche. That don't make sense. That still don't make sense to me. How everybody's, like, naked and getting other people's clothes. Yeah, you can't outrun that fast.
Maybe they're all, like,
snatching people's clothes.
On drugs or something. Did they test them for drugs? I don't know. Did that? I don't think they did that. So probably they could have been on some sort of hallucinogen.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, that would probably explain a lot.
Yeah,
why you go out.
Yeah, and why she cutting her tongue off and stuff, or somebody else cutting her tongue off, and it didn't explain why the man was, like, hit by a car, basically.
I mean, I was talking about the whole going out naked and stuff.
All of it. Well, all of it. That part, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
him getting hit by a car, I don't know. So his chest was like fractured and stuff. I don't know, it's so weird. What are y'all doing?
Unless he fell from somewhere up high. I don't know, like...
What if he climbed a tree and like fell or something?
Yeah. If he fell on like a snow slab.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because that'd be like hitting concrete. I don't know. What do you think?
This one's still a mystery.
Yeah.
What are your theories?
Very interesting story.
I know. It's crazy.
Yeah, so we'd love to hear your thoughts on today's story. What do you think? Do you think that it could have been a Yeti? Aliens? Was it the government trying to cover something up?
Russia.
Don't come for us. But yeah, before we get into today's question, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, turn on all notifications if you're on YouTube. If you're listening from our podcast, be sure to subscribe and also give us 5 stars. We would really greatly appreciate your review. If you want to send us a topic that you'd like for us to cover, head over to our Facebook page, send us a message, drop us a comment, leave a comment here on YouTube. However you'd like to get it to us, we'll make sure to put it on our list. If you also would like to send us a question for us to answer at the end of our episodes, do the same. Facebook, comment down below, send us a message. Yeah. Do we have a question for today?
Yep.
So do we have a story for today?
So I wrote like 3 random ones. So, what personality trait do you wish you didn't have?
You mean I have to pick one?
I mean, you got.
No, I'm just kidding. I wish I wasn't so sensitive.
You're Cancer.
I'm a Cancer.
It's in your blood.
I love being a Cancer. It is in my blood. It's in my DNA. But that'd probably be it. I wish I wouldn't be. I'm not so sensitive. I like being sensitive, but I also like to not cry at everything.
Feel that?
Yeah. What about you?
So for me, I wish I was less like introverted. Because, I'm like I can be really shy and I don't like doing social things a lot. Mm-hmm. So if I would just like put myself out there a little more, maybe I have some fun. I just like staying home and going to bed. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're really fun.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But you definitely are very introverted.
Yeah.
You don't like to speak in front of people.
No.
It's rough doing this podcast for both of us. So you're welcome for that.
Can't read out loud.
You get anxiety.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I could see you wanting to be more of the opposite. Yeah. But I wouldn't change you.
I wouldn't change you either.
Aww.
Your sensitivity.
I know. It makes me a better person, I guess.
That's right.
Alright, well, thank y'all for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. And as always, stay curious.